All right. Good morning, Chair Postman, members Garrett and Vollendroff, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thanks, Justin. We'll convene the Liquor and Cannabis Board Caucus meeting for Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. Our first item is a legislative update with our legislative director, Mark Webster, with some good news, right?
Well, that's right, Chair Postman. And good morning, board members Garrett and Vollendroff. As David is referring to, last evening, the social equity bill passed the House by a vote of 60 to 38. I think it was a very comfortable margin for a bill that at times, as you all know, faced some considerable opposition. And I wanted to thank each member of this board because every time that, barriers were in its way, I think your efforts to overcome them really did pave the way for its eventual success. So thank you to all of you. And of course, the THC bill, 5367, passed easily last week. So the two big items on our legislative agenda are both now out of the legislature. Don't anticipate any problems in concurrence. The House didn't do a whole lot to the bill, so don't anticipate anything, but I'll let you know when it has moved through and is on the way to the governor. The subpoena bill, again, not in really good shape, thanks to a couple of House amendments, but it is on the second reading calendar, so we'll see what we can do about that. I think we're going to be looking for the for the Senate to not concur. We are seeing, outside of our agenda, we're seeing a number of bills impacting the agency starting to pass through the process. One of them, 1730, House Bill 1730, is the bill that would extend some COVID-era allowances that would allow 18 to 21-year-olds to work in certain jobs, not alcohol-related, but other jobs in alcohol-licensed businesses, as a line cook or things like that. Another bill, the bill that would allow short-term rental owners to leave a bottle of wine for guests, has passed. And then, of course, the one that I think is most important to our agency is the tobacco and vape bill that we've spent a lot of time discussing this year, 5365. That is passed with some new training requirements for our E&E staff and other things. So we're going to sit down and figure out exactly what we want to do about that and how we're going to implement that so that we can continue to do our job in enforcing compliance on tobacco and vape. I think that just kind of sets the stage for a lot of work heading for Kathy Hoffman and her team as we write rules on a number of these things. But that's all I have for now. I'd be happy to take any questions.
And also, we saw member Garrett confirmed unanimously and member Vollendroff moved to the on-deck circle.
That's right.
All right.
And Mark, I just want to thank you for all of the work that you did on that social equity bill and time and effort every day of the week, Monday through Saturday. We had phone calls going on that bill. So thank you for I know what you were going through doing session. And I reached out to April Bird for her on the floor support and the work that she did, and Representative Sardonia, Reeves, and Entenmann. I reached out to all of them last night.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say, Mark, I noticed there are a couple of bills that aren't agency bills or even that will impact us directly, but I think are interesting. Arrest protection is up,
yes,
perhaps, and the employment protection for cannabis users. I sort of lost track of that one, but that also I think that's on a calendar or something of that sort. So it's still alive and possible, and those are, in my personal view, good steps in this effort.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think we're just seeing kind of the traffic management phase of session as a lot of these bills, including, I would mention 1132, the limited law enforcement bill, that have had a lot of support, that have made it through the fiscal committees and are just kind of in a holding pattern, kind of a waiting game. I don't think there's anything wrong, or, I think they'll probably pass eventually. But, leadership has to figure out what bills are going to run when. But we'll continue to watch for those to finally move out of that logjam.
Yeah, I think arrest protection, which helps medical users, really would be important. I hope that happens.
Agreed.
personally. So yeah, good. Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. Keep up the good
Thank
work.
you, Mark.
You're almost done there.
The finish line is near. Thank you.
Yeah. We will now move to board meeting prep for tomorrow's meeting and a rules update, and I'll turn it over to Kathy Hoffman. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Postman, board members Garrett and Vollendroff. I will start with the rules update, and that'll be rule petition updates, because we do have some rule petitions. We've got 3 of them, 2 that we'll be presenting to you tomorrow. So starting with rules on the cannabis side with respect to advertising, Cassidy's been doing a really good job of getting draft conceptual rules ready to go there. We are kind of pausing those, not moving them forward really rapidly, because there is legislation, and that's Senate Bill 5363. That's still in the Rules Committee at this point right now on the House side. So we'll see what happens there, but that may impact what those rules look like moving into the future. So we're gonna just, we'll do the internal review of the draft conceptual rules and then see what happens on the 23rd and whether or not we have additional implementation to do there. With respect to the rules regarding minors under 16 on production license premises, that was a rule petition that we accepted. I do believe Cassidy is going to bring that forward. However, that does really depend on how much rulemaking comes from this particular legislative session. And as everyone just noted, there's going to be significant work for us to do there. So I am able to spend some time working on prioritization in the coming weeks. So we'll be ready to respond to that, put projects on pause that we need to, and kind of put these projects back into alignment based on what happens in the legislative session. And then with respect to cannabis sampling, Jeff has updated that timeline. We are starting some internal work on revisions to cannabis sampling rules. At this point, he plans on bringing a CR 102 to you on June 7th, and that would have a CR 103 completed on or about August 16th. With respect to emergency rule projects, we do have the current social equity rules, and that was the emergency rule that Daniel brought to you on the 29th of March. That does have a calendar expiration date of July 29th. So under the statute, the Administrative Procedures Act, emergency rules have a lifespan of 120 days. However, we don't need that rule after April 27th. So I will, or Daniel will come back to the board at the May 10th board meeting and ask that that rule be rescinded or withdrawn. That emergency rule. And then I'll speak in a moment to the emergency rule that I'll be bringing with respect to the current issues concerning pesticides in a moment. So that's the update on the cannabis side. Any questions from the board on that?
None.
No.
Okay. So moving on to the activity going on the alcohol side. Daniel continues to work on the Mass 13 permit work. Timeline has not changed on that. We do look at bringing a CR 102 towards the end of June with a CR 103 first part of August. So progress continues there, but timeline has not changed. With respect to private club memberships, and again, that was something the board approved. That was a petition that we received last year. Jeff plans on bringing a CR 102 to you towards the end of March with a CR 103 by mid-July. So that would mean if we do move forward with rulemaking there, the persons who would benefit from that rule would be able to do it in time for some of the fall activities that private clubs wish to bring, like Elks, Eagles, those sorts of private clubs. With respect to general rulemaking, Daniel's working on a survey that he hopes to release to all of our licensee types by the end of this week, and then we'll have a better idea of how we're going to proceed with that project. But still, timeline is still the same. It hasn't changed. Tentative 102 to you by last part of June, with rule adoption towards the last part of August. And then with respect to rule petitions, Jeff will be speaking to you here in a few moments about the rule petition response that we discussed in Caucus last week that will be presented to the board for discussion tomorrow. I'll also speak to the petition response that I discussed with you last week, and that had to do with the addition of global entry cards to acceptable forms of ID. And then we have a third rule petition that I will bring a response to you in caucus to discuss next week briefly, and then present to the board for final discussion on April 26th. And that has to do with making a change to a statute that petitioner requested that the agency engage in rulemaking to change rather than a statutory change through the legislature. So that's the end of the rule updates. Any questions I can answer? I will say the rules. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No questions.
Okay, I will again just reiterate, I think that our rules update is going to change significantly on the 25th when I provide an update at that time, or the first part of May. So if I may, I'd like to go into rule prep or I'm sorry, board prep for tomorrow. So I will be bringing our emergency rules for the board to consider tomorrow. And those do concern the current pesticides concerns. So I will speak more broadly to the rule package and the issues related to that and the particular rule language in tomorrow's board meeting. Any questions there?
On that, will you be able to send that to us at the end of the day today, or so if I have a chance to read that before tomorrow's meeting, be great.
Yes, I will. And I believe I can send it to you at the conclusion of this meeting. The package is ready to go.
Great, cool.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I don't know if it's for a board meeting or what discussion, but is there going to be any type of discussion talking about what was done to work with the people that was being affected by this, impacted by this, what the agency did in advance to notify them and to make them aware, things like that? Is that going to be discussed at all tomorrow?
Yes.
If I could, Ollie, we even asked Chandra to come tomorrow to talk about this, and Kathy will also be here.
Okay.
And that'll be our opportunity to be briefed by enforcement director and ask our questions. So yes.
Okay. All right.
And Kathy will be there to talk about the steps forward with the rulemaking as well.
All right.
All right. Thank you for that question. And if I may, I'll just go into the rule petition response that I'll be providing tomorrow. And we'll be discussing, and again, not to spend a lot of time on this since we spent the last board caucus focusing on this, but this was a request to add global entry card IDs to the list of acceptable form of IDs that are currently described in WAC 314.11.025. Won't spend a lot of time on this today, but again, there were 3 options for the board to consider. Those are the typical options: engage in rulemaking, deny the petition, or provide some sort of alternative guidance. And so any questions there? Any follow-up questions from last week when we met?
No.
All right, thank you. And I will hand it over to Jeff.
Great, thank you. Morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Chair Postman. Good morning, members Garrett and Vollendorf. At tomorrow's board meeting, I will present the agency's response to a petition for rulemaking received on February 23rd, 2023 from Rachel Escal of NGMA Group. The petition requests creation of a new rule section in Title 314 WAC to allow restaurants to have secure wine lockers so that customers can keep wine they have purchased in locked storage at the licensed premises. This was discussed more fully at last week's caucus. Under the requested rule, a wine locker would function to allow a restaurant licensee to offer service to securely store wine already purchased by restaurant patrons at the restaurant for future on-premises consumption. The service would only be available for privately owned wine that was originally purchased from the restaurant licensee. The petition and attached letters specify that wine locker storage would be for wine only, and it notes that the privately owned and stored wine could only be served by mass certified restaurant employees following the licensee's regular wine service practices. Tomorrow, I will provide more information regarding this petition for a new rule, and I'll go over the reported divisional interagency, intergovernmental DEIB, social equity, and other impacts of the requested rule. And I will review 3 possible options for responding to the petition request, including the risk and benefits of each option. So thank you for the opportunity to preview this rulemaking petition response, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Don't see any questions.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair Postman. Thank you, members.
Tomorrow, Kathy, is there anything else? Oh, you're muted.
There we go. That is it for today. Any questions that I can answer for anyone at this point?
I don't think so.
All right.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll now turn to Rick Garza, our Director for General Agency Update.
Morning, Chair Postman, board members, Vollendroff, and Garrett. All of you kind of asked the question that I was going to speak to very briefly, which is, as you all know, last Thursday evening, our Director of Enforcement, Chandra Wax, provided a notice to all of our cannabis licensees of the potential contamination, pesticide contamination in one specific region of Okanagan County. And so, as you asked, Ollie, we'll be bringing staff forward tomorrow to really get into some details with respect to not only the action that we took immediately, but the actions that we're looking to take. And Chandra will share specifically the discussions that have been occurring and have been occurring for some time now, before last week, with Department of Ecology, Department of Agriculture, and Department of Health. And so there'll be an opportunity then to at least give you the opportunity to ask questions of us. And I know between myself and Chandra and others, we've been keeping you apprised daily, if necessary, of what's been happening with respect to this issue. And so I don't think I need to add any more, Chair Postman. I think the discussion will occur tomorrow. And then we'll share, I think, as you just were alluding to, Ollie, some of the meetings that we're looking to organize immediately with folks that are impacted, be the growers, the trade associations, all licensees. And then the work that Chandra's been doing, as I said earlier, with all the other agencies that are helping us to figure out how to deal with this potential, what appears to be a soil contamination issue there in a very small area of Okanagan County. So I just wanted to share that. So thanks for asking, Ollie. On a totally different front, I had the pleasure last night to attend the first Latino Caucus legislative reception. The Latino Caucus was formed a couple of years ago. Having been in the legislature and in the state government for so many years, there's always been a couple of legislators that were Latino or Latina. Senator Margarita Prentice comes to mind. Phyllis Gutierrez Kinney comes to mind. Always just a handful, to be honest. Well, in the last 4 years, and especially in this last election, a number of Latinas were elected, 11 that make up the caucus. So it was a great opportunity for the first time to meet. Justice Gonzalez was with us. There was a recognition of folks in the past. My parents, Ed and Amelia Garza, were recognized from the Yakima Valley, who were kind of instrumental in the 60s, 70s, and 80s in the push to provide farm worker rights and housing. And it was fun to see that. Some of the old timers were recognized. And it was a great opportunity. They recognized those from the governor's office. David Puentes, the new director of Department of Veterans Affairs, was there, and myself. So it was great to be recognized then and just to have some time with folks. I won't be there next year, but Jim, you're our Latino representative on the board. So I kind of look forward to you joining that group. next week. It was an invitation only because I think it was their first time together, but the Commission on Hispanic Affairs hosted the event, and it was really a good one. And it was good to be a part of that and see that growth that's occurred, which kind of leads me to, because we're talking about it, as you know, our agency's been involved with many of the business resource groups that have been formed in the last few years. I think of WIN, which is the Washington Immigration Network, that our former chair of the board, Lorraine Lee, established several years ago. I think one of the first ones, David, as you recall. And our employees have been very much involved in many of them. I'm thinking of 4 of them right now: Build, WIN, LLN, which is the Latino Leadership Network that I've been a part of for a number of years. And many of those, because our employees have come forward to seek our sponsorship to help with the annual events that these folks have. I'm actually meeting with folks tomorrow to look at continuing that sponsorship that we've done and including others that come forward, mostly generated by staff that's part of those BRGs, or business resource groups. And that's really a recognition of the diversity of the state, of why these groups were formed, to give state employees who have a diverse background the opportunity to be together and to learn from one another, and for others also. So I've always been proud of the fact that, you know, people like Kim Sauer, who's with us for years, was one of the persons with Lorraine Lee that formed WIN, and I think it kind of spurred the growth of other BRGs. So I'll share with you once we provide that list of sponsorship, but we will be assisting those organizations financially to help them as they grow. And so just thought I'd share that with you today.
Yeah, good.
That's great. Thank you. Just, can I make a quick comment, David?
Please, go ahead, Jim.
One thing. So, Rick, thank you for your updates. I was going to let people know, you know, Vollendorf doesn't come across as a Hispanic name. And so one of the things that I don't often talk about is that Vollendorf is an adopted name. So I came across that name through adoption, and that my birth last name is Ramirez. And so I am proud of my Hispanic heritage and look forward to participating in the future. And then I wanted to also just quickly go back and talk about a little bit towards Ollie's question, but I wanted to acknowledge all the work that I've seen happening, keeping people informed of what's happening regarding the pesticide issue. And Director Wax in particular has kept me well informed. And Rick, you mentioned meetings that are going to be happening with growers, trade associations, and others. And I recognize that we can't be in all of those meetings, but I did want to put out there that I am happy as a board member to represent us. If there's a meeting, David, that you can't make, or that where it makes sense that Ollie or I participate, I just wanted to put out there that I'm happy to participate in any of these meetings in the future.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I mentioned to Rick last week that I want to make sure that the board is notified anytime there's a meeting with licensees or trade groups, and that we have the opportunity to participate there and maybe, you know, serve as convener for some of those meetings. So we're scheduling those now. I think I'm going to do some this Thursday and Friday, but I am sure there will be others that we're looking for. So I appreciate that. Okay, for Rick, congratulations on being there last night when your parents were honored. That's cool.
Yeah.
Did they come over?
No, they passed both of them.
Both your parents?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were.
Number of years now.
Sorry.
But it was
Oh.
great for them to be recognized.
That's nice.
That is nice.
Thank you.
And your sister was the head of
She's
the
a
commission
she
for a
would have been
while.
there,
That's nice. Yeah. Okay. That's it on the agenda. Up to board member and executive assistant reports. Anything, Dustin?
Not for me. Thank you, Chair.
Jim or Ollie? Okay, great. Well, then we'll adjourn, and we'll be back same time tomorrow for a busy board meeting. So with that, we'll adjourn the board caucus for April 11th, 2023. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Bye, everybody.